Hi there, folks, and welcome to another edition of Eyecare Today. I'm your host, Dr. Thomas Kislan, and as always, a reminder, we're coming to you from our Hazleton location, 281 Airport Road in Hazleton. Our phone number 453-2020 with any questions. If you're catching us from the Stroudsburg location, 852 North 9th Street is our office in Stroudsburg. That's Stroudsburg Eye Specialist, and our phone number there, 4213-342. I should know that phone number by now. As always, look us up on the web at www.drkislan.com. Thanks for joining us again. We are excited again to have with us Dr. Michael Gross. He is the Chief Medical Officer of Physician Rangameta Nutraceuticals, and this is going to be part two of a two-part show about omega-3s, omega-3 science, benefits to health, and benefits to the eyes. So, Dr. Gross, once again, thank you for joining us from the Philadelphia area and coming up here to enlighten our viewers on what's going on in the omega-3 world. Let's do a quick review of what we did in our first show, which was we established the fact that omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. We need them in our bodies. They're essential fats. Omega-6s are bad omegas. They promote inflammation. So fast food, saturated fats, bad omegas. So we need to take omega-3s, and they need to be in what's called a triglyceride form. In the first show, and folks, if you missed the first show, you can go to www.ssptv.com and you can click on the show and you can watch it anytime, so you can catch all this. We talked about the distillation process and why a triglyceride form is the best, which is what the physician recommended nutraceutical form is. And we ended the show by talking about a question I get all the time from patients, is that they're told by their doctors that you can't take omega-3s because they promote bleeding. And we said that is absolutely false, that omega-3s in the triglyceride form do not have any issues with bleeding. It is sometimes in the form that you get it just over the counter in the drugstore, where they add vitamin E to these to help with the purity of them, that the vitamin E is actually what causes the bleeding. Is all that correct so far?
That absolutely is correct.
But here's a question we're going to get is, I thought vitamin E was good, and now you're telling me that vitamin E is bad. So tell me about vitamin E a little bit, and the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, this is a very interesting question because just recently, actually over the last 6 months, the whole issue of vitamin supplementation has come into question. There was a powerful article written in the Annals of Internal Medicine that suggested that multivitamin use may not be the insurance policy that we thought it was. And in fact, for elderly women, it could actually be harmful. Now, those were women that are already healthy, as opposed to people who might have some deficiency, so we need to make that distinction. But what happens in the vitamin world is that vitamins may be mixed together in incomplete forms. As we talked in the earlier show, fish oil can be called fish oil if it started from a fish. But in these chemical forms, these impure forms, these incomplete forms, they're not really what you would find in the food. So the vitamin E that you're referring to, Tom, that's added to many fish oil products is a piece of vitamin E. And if the folks look on the labels of their fish oil and even on their multivitamins, they'll see that the vitamin E is in the D-alpha tocopherol form. That is a piece of vitamin E. And in that form, when taken too frequently or when too much is taken, that's when we can run into some side effects. So one of the side effects of vitamin E in that form is that it causes anticoagulation. And I'm not sure if that's what I want to have happen, and this is why doctors perhaps are concerned when patients are taking too much vitamin E in that form. And that's that whole mythology around bleeding and vitamin E, because vitamin E in that form does have an anticoagulation effect. However, vitamin E in that form works to prevent the further degradation of other substances. It works as an antioxidant. So fish oils that are impure. Fish oils that are in chemical form are more likely to spoil, and they may be spoiled already. So vitamin E is added to prevent more spoilage.
In the D-alpha tocopherol form.
In the D-alpha tocopherol form. And folks out there, when you look on your multivitamins, and if you're buying the over-the-counter brand of fish oil, I can almost guarantee you'll see vitamin E on the label in that form. It is not therapeutic. It is not beneficial in that form, although that's how it may be marketed. There are many eye products, for example, and other products that are being used therapeutically that have high amounts of this vitamin E because the oil that's in there is impure or already spoiled to some degree. So if you're going to take a supplement, whether it's vitamin E or whatever, a B vitamin, for example, these need to be in food form. And then we get the benefit. For example, vitamin E is found in nuts. It's found in spinach. You can't eat too many nuts. You can't eat too much spinach. The more the better. But too much of the incomplete vitamin E can be harmful. So in terms of our food science, by our, I mean physician-recommended nutraceuticals, we only use food forms. We only use complete, pure forms in our supplements, in our oils. That's why we are what we are. So the triglyceride form that we use in our fish oil, for example, is the equivalent to the food form. It's just cleaner. And we're very proud of that. And that does keep our solemn vow intact, that vow of doing no harm as we're trying to help patients achieve a therapeutic outcome.
And following the science.
I
think the one thing that we can be assured of is that PRN has always followed the science. We call it evidence-based medicine. So just like in the office, when I'm treating a patient, I never do anything unless I have science behind it. I think that's the same thing from physician-recommended nutraceuticals, is everything's done following the science, which a lot of nutraceutical companies do not do. They add a lot of garbage to a lot of their supplements without really having anything evidence-based to back it up.
That's right, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little later in the show about how hard we go at this, because our model is through a physician's recommendation. When I first came up to Hazleton, perhaps we had a half a dozen physicians who believed in us and other enlightened medical providers. We now have over 1,200 physicians who recommend our products exclusively. They think of them as they would a prescription. They have that confidence because they know that the quality and purity standards that we follow are equivalent to what they get in their pharmaceutical agents, and they know there is a predictable therapeutic outcome that we can prove in not only a condition-specific way, but in a product-specific way, because we've done that research.
And you know, we're so happy PRN has always done that. So what I want to do, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're actually going to talk about a multivitamin that PRN has developed for macular degeneration. You're not going to want to miss this. We'll see you on Eyecare Today on the next side of this break. Welcome back, folks. I'm your host, Dr. Thomas Kislan. You're watching Eyecare Today. And again, we welcome Dr. Michael Gross, the Chief Medical Officer of Physician Recommended Nutraceuticals. Remember, folks, this show, any show that you may have missed, you can always catch us www.ssb.tv. Look for the link to Eyecare Today, and you can watch any of our shows if you've missed any of them. But before the break, Mike, we were talking about vitamin E, good, bad, the form that it should be in, and we got into a little bit of multivitamins. What I want to discuss, because macular degeneration is such a devastating disease. We know it's one of the leading causes of blindness in patients over 50 in the United States. We know so much more about it now than we did, but there's still a lot more we need to learn. But what's happened with macular degeneration, and where PRN has been on the forefront of this, is the development of a multivitamin to help slow the progression of macular degeneration. And this has been in conjunction with two of the leading physicians, retina specialists at Wills Eye Hospital, Dr. Alan Ho and Dr. Mitch Feynman. And this is just so exciting because it gives us another tool to help combat macular degeneration. So tell me a little bit about this multivitamin and why it's so exciting. And I happen to have one right here, so we can reference this as far as what's in it. But why is it so important? Why should patients be taking it?
Well, once again, we have to embrace and bless the fact that eye physicians were probably the first clinical group to begin the process of recommending supplementation for certain diseases because of a study that was done in 2001 by the National Eye Institute Division of the National Institute of Health. It was the Advanced Retinal Eye Disease Study number 1, AREDS-1 for short. And what was found in this study was that certain groupings of vitamins and minerals, when taken over a certain period of time, actually had a profound impact on the prevention of further progression of macular degeneration. In fact, there was a 25% prevention of progression for folks who had mid-stage macular degeneration into that really dangerous end stage or wet stage. And based on that study, the use of this aggregation of vitamins and minerals became a standard of care for eye doctors. And that was wonderful. The first group of doctors to really embrace the notion that supplementation and nutrition had an impact on a disease. So here we are 10 years later, and we've had a chance to look at that formula. It originally came out as something called Preservision and Ocuvite. Tom, of course, you're much more expert than I am on that kind of thing. But there were certain forms of the vitamins in there that we've now learned over time may not have been as beneficial as they could have been. For example, the vitamin E in the original AREDS formula was the D-alpha tocopherol form. There was something else in there, a high amount of beta-carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. And what we've learned is that there are certain clinical groups, smokers, for example, who, if exposed to high doses of beta-carotene, actually have a negative effect. It accelerates the likelihood of lung cancer. And going down that road, it turns out that high doses of vitamin A in general do the same thing and further increase the risk of other diseases such as cardiovascular disease.
Wasn't there a higher mortality rate actually in this study with patients who had beta-carotene?
Exactly right, Dr. Kislan. In fact, here we are trying to help people for an eye disease and at the same time increasing their chance of all-cause mortality.
But let's be clear, it's the beta-carotene in the artificial form, not when you get beta-carotene when you eat your carrots or spinach or things like that. So I think what we need to be clear on for the folks out there is that these forms in the natural form is good. And that's where PRN has taken the lead. And these supplements that you guys manufacture all have the natural forms. So I'm going to pick one up here and reference it. Vitamin C as ascorbic acid, right? Very important to the body. And here we are, the vitamin E form. Now the D-alpha tocopherol form is not the form we want. What's the form that we should have?
Well, vitamin E actually has 4 tocopherols and 4 tocotrienols. Interesting that patients will often go out and buy vitamin E supplements in this form. That is the complete vitamin E.
So it's the complete vitamin E that
right.
you want. You need all the tocopherols together, the D-alpha, the D-beta, the D-gamma, and the tocotrienols.
Right. You can't find a piece of vitamin E in food. You find the whole thing, and that's where the benefit is. So that's all that we would use.
And I just read the label, and folks, that's what's in here. So this is the good stuff. Thiamine. Thiamine's important.
Right.
Riboflavin. Tell me a little bit about riboflavin.
Well, what path you're going down now, Tom, and the folks out there are probably familiar that these are B vitamins, and since that original study in 2001, a powerful study came out showing that B vitamins in complete form, the kinds of things you would find in whole grains, are hugely beneficial for the prevention of AMD. In fact, that study showed that the B vitamins alone worked even better than the AREDS formula. So
we called them the beautiful bees.
The beautiful bees. So we naturally included them in this formulation in the complete food form.
Niacin, B6, folic acid. Gee, let me think. Folic acid, isn't that something, obstetric gynecology, wasn't there something important with folic acid in your day?
And folic acid is actually vitamin B9, and when this came out of our foods, when we stopped eating whole grains and things that had these B vitamins in them, we unfortunately wound up with patients or babies that had some very severe birth defects. And now that the government requires that vitamin to be added back to food, this has disappeared. So this is all about making sure people get a food form in their supplement that they're missing in their diet.
And for those of you who don't know, folks, Dr. Gross was previously a high-risk obstetrics gynecology specialist, so that's why we just joked about the folic acid there. Biotin.
Again, another B vitamin, and again, we have the entire B vitamin complex there, so folks, you don't need to go out and buy a B vitamin supplement if you're taking this, or a vitamin E. In fact, I want to make
pantothenic acid.
Again, another B vitamin.
Beautiful.
What I alluded to earlier in the conversation today was the notion that more is more. In multivitamins, you see a huge array of things thrown together. This formulation is a less is more equation. That's what works for us in science. Everything that's in there is not only in the food form, but it's in there for a reason that we can explain, that's scientifically validated, for the benefit of prevention of dry eye and the prevention of the progression of dry eye. I'm sorry, the prevention of AMD and the prevention of progression of macular degeneration.
But that's a great lead-in to our next segment. We're going to talk hopefully a little bit about dry eye. We're going to take a quick break here, folks. Again, you're watching Eyecare Today. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Thomas Kislan. You're watching Eyecare Today. We're joined by Dr. Michael Gross, the Chief Medical Officer of Physician Recommended Nutraceuticals. And before the break, we were talking about the importance of a multivitamin, especially multivitamin, to help prevent the progression of macular degeneration. What I want to do now, Mike, is talk about, we know the importance of this multivitamin, but still, omega-3s are extremely important in also preventing the progression of macular degeneration. We're seeing more and more literature now about that. So sum up for me a little bit about the science about why omega-3s actually help with macular degeneration.
Well, Tom, the same group of researchers from the National Eye Institute started a second phase of this trial I noted earlier as AREDS. It's now Advanced Retinal Eye Disease Study number 2, and that focuses on omega-3s and two other ingredients, lutein and zeaxanthin. These are carotenoids, and the fancy word for things that give food certain colors and certain health benefits, the kinds of things you would find in spinach, green leafy vegetables, carrots, that give the body the benefit of those kinds of nutrients, as well as that wonderful orange color that we see in the retina when you're seeing your eye doctors, and Dr. Kislan, of course, is an expert in that regard. So the second half of the puzzle is now underway in terms of study. And what we're learning, again, as I alluded to earlier, is that it may be these ingredients, the omega-3s, the lutein and zeaxanthin, that have even more powerful protective benefits for this disease. We'll probably have the results of this by 2014, but this was all started because there are certain cultures that have high amounts of fish in their diet and who consume these various nutrients in the form of carotenoids that don't seem to have much macular degeneration in their culture. So that's why we need to investigate that and see if we can have that happen in our culture.
And again, the omega-3 being in the natural triglyceride form is obviously very important with absorption. You mentioned the lutein, the zeaxanthin. As far as I know, PRN is the only company to add vitamin D3 to the omega-3s. Now, explain for our folks out there why D3 is important, and then let's talk about why it's important for the eye. So overall health of for D3, why is it important?
Vitamin D is actually in everybody's minds now. It probably has reached a level of awareness almost as high as omega-3. Many OBGYNs, as you alluded to, will actually get a vitamin D level in their patients.
A lot of family doctors are starting to do that.
And family doctors too. I've said in other forums, I believe we have an omega-3 deficiency epidemic in this country. I call it omeganemia. Alongside of that, there probably is a vitamin D deficiency epidemic in America. And interesting, in fish, omega-3s and vitamin D are found together. So if I'm going to create a food form omega-3 and I want to get all the benefits of the fish, then the vitamin D should be part of that. And vitamin D is an oil. It's a fat-soluble vitamin. So buying vitamin D supplements that are dried or in a powdered form or in a chemical form, they just don't work as efficiently. So all of the oils that we have, all of our products have vitamin D3 added. That's the active form of vitamin D. And we put oils with oils because that's how they're found in nature.
And what does D3 do for our health? What's it good for? Why do we need it? Like if we're deficient in it, what happens?
D3 is part of the overall structure of our bodies in terms of healing, how our immune system functions.
Neuroprotection.
Neuroprotection. Right? I mean, you cannot find a physiologic function that is not impacted by this vitamin. So if you don't have enough of it and in the right form in your body, there will be a consequence.
Why have we not been getting enough of it all these years?
Oh, Tom, what a question that is.
We only have 3 minutes left.
Right. Well, vitamin D, again, the sunshine vitamin, here we go, a culture that has now become a little bit phobic about exposing ourselves to sunlight. Remember, we roamed the earth for millions of years and we actually got our vitamin D through sun exposure to our skin. Now we're told to slather on loads of protectants and sunscreens and whatever. We wouldn't be talking about vitamin D if people spent 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week in direct sunlight at certain times of the year. They would get more than enough vitamin D for the year, but folks are afraid to do that. So we need to get it in another way if we're not going to do direct sunlight. So we need to get it through our food, which was also for years another source of vitamin D because people ate more fish and there's lots of vitamin D in fish. Unfortunately, people don't eat fish much anymore either, so the lack of direct sunlight and the lack of fish consumption rolls up into an epidemic of omega-3 and vitamin D deficiency.
And it's interesting, I actually had an elderly patient. She was about 83 years old, and she said to me the other day, she said, my cardiologist told me to sit in the sun for 10 minutes a day. And so we're actually now seeing this realization that we are so vitamin D3 deficient, omega-3 deficient. So I think the medical community really is now catching on to a lot of the issues that have cropped up over the years.
And that's right, Tom. It's wonderful that I've lived long enough to see the change in the medical paradigm now, and that we're thinking more about prevention, American physicians are thinking more about including nutrition as part of their counseling to patients. In fact, there's something out there now which doctors are providing. It's called lifestyle medicine. Advising patients to exercise more, to eat better, to supplement when appropriate, has become part of the conversation that physicians should be having with their patients, especially if they are enlightened physicians like our good Dr. Kislan.
I think first, what I want to do in wrapping up is I want to thank PRN for being on the forefront of bringing this science to our communities and to the doctors who are serving the patients. I think we need to thank, I mentioned before, Dr. Alan Ho, Dr. Mitch Feynman from Will's Eye for really helping pull all this together also. I want to give our practice a little bit of a plug and briefly talk about a study we did involving red blood cell saturation and omega-3s. We, along with Dr. Bucci, did a study that actually showed that when you take an over-the-counter omega-3 versus the physician-recommended nutraceutical brand, you do not get the absorption into the red blood cell, which then means you're not getting it into the body. So the PRN brand is highly absorbable on the walls of the red blood cell, so we know we're going to be getting it into the tissues in the body. So that was a great study that we did. And what I'd like to do is invite any patient out there. We're going to be starting a new study soon that actually involves dry eye and omega-3 supplementation. So if any of our viewers out there believe that they have undiagnosed dry eye or dry eye that they've been diagnosed with and they're not happy with the treatment they're getting, please call our office 453-2020, 421-3342 in Stroudsburg, and we will put you on the list for when we start this study. This is going to be a groundbreaking study, Dr. Gross, I believe, and we will be the only ones in the country performing this study. So again, thank you, Dr. Gross, for coming up from Philadelphia. As always, we really appreciate it. Folks out there, thanks for watching. Again, if you missed any of our shows, ssptv.com. You can catch our shows online anytime, and make sure to catch us next time. Again, you're watching Eyecare Today. I'm your host, Dr. Thomas Kislan, and we'll see you next time.